How do you make your fictional sword fighting character look especially cool? I bet that's an important question to some folks out there. Now obviously, this will be better demonstrated by someone who can actually look cool while doing it, but at least I've got the poofy sleeves and pants. That's something. Alright, let's see. What's the coolest looking stance or ward or guard with longsword, Dosac, Rapier, and sword and buckler? By the way, what I just showed you are not the ones that I consider the coolest. Wouldn't want to spoil anything now, would I? First off, there's one thing you should keep in mind, well, several actually. Guards may vary, depending not only on differences between manuscripts, but also different interpretations of the same guard described in one particular manuscript. And some of the drawings are not very good, so it can be hard to figure out, or they can be a little off. All right, let's get to it. When it comes to longsword, the most useful guards aren't necessarily the best looking. For example, roof guard, which can be in a number of different positions. It can be all the way up high. It can be here, it can kind of vary in this general area. It can be more retracted, more forward, etc. Either way, it's not the most interesting looking guard. Useful, but doesn't necessarily look cool. Right, then, long point, very useful in a lot of ways. Again, not necessarily the coolest looking guard. I mean, it looks pretty good, depending, and it has some variation of it has been used for fictional characters. If you think about Cloud Strife, now that's probably taken from Kenjutsu, in fact, most definitely, rather than European swordsmanship, but it's basically the same. Personally, I think Plow Guard looks better. It's got a little more visual spice to it, I feel like. And some of the more exposed guards, or seemingly exposed, tend to look cooler. Like, for example, Wrath Guard, strongly retracted. Fiore doesn't call it Wrath. I forgot what he calls it, but it can be very strongly retracted, which looks pretty neat. There's a lot to be said about the utility of each guard. I'm pretty sure I've covered that already, or if I haven't, I should. Either way, this is not what we're focusing on. This is about style. So, Tail Guard looks pretty good in that regard, right? It may look exposed, but you can quickly use an undercut from here or rise up for a false edge deflection. Now, I'm already talking again about the use. It looks cool. All right, enough said. The second best looking guard, in my opinion, also exists in Japanese swordsmanship and has been adopted pretty often in video games in some form, and that is Ox. So this can be either with the thumb on the blade like this, or not. Crossed, I find, tends to look better than open on the other side. Doesn't look quite as good, right? But yeah, this is definitely some variety you see pretty often in video games. Sometimes it's kind of sloppy, but some form of this, whether it be more forward, more retracted, tends to look pretty good, right? And the coolest, in my opinion, for longsword, looks somewhat similar, but is different. And that is Key. This may look a bit crazy, and you might wonder, what can you even do from here? But it's coiled up for quite a powerful thrust, and you can cut from it. I'm doing it again. I can't stick to just the visuals. I always have to start with the practical use. What you sometimes see in movies is this, which is a worse version, in my opinion, both practically and visually. This has more spice. It makes the character look proficient. Good stuff, if you ask me, which I'm assuming you do. Otherwise, why are you here? I forgot another good one, Barrier Guard or Iron Gate. Cool name too. All right, Rapier. I'm going to make this fairly quick. I think generally Rapier looks pretty good. If you look at Italian Rapier, it's usually some variety of this. Tends to be back-weighted with the blade forward. The hand position can vary. It can be here or here, something like that. But either way, looks pretty good. There are plenty of other stances, but I want to cut that short to get straight to the juicy one, which is from Spanish Rapier, Destreza. This looks great for a gentleman fencer because it has this relaxed confidence. It's like, you know what you're doing. You're working with geometry. You don't have to do a whole lot of fancy maneuvers, deep lunges, anything like that. No, no, no. You know exactly where your blade is supposed to be relative to your opponent, and you will skewer them. In fact, a lot of this fighting style kind of ends up with the opponent running themselves through with your own rapier. You know, like particularly Spanish against Italian, the Italian fencer can often end up, you know, running in onto the blade inadvertently. So it is quite a stylish way to fight with a rapier. Then dussack. A lot of the guards look kind of like a single-handed version of longsword. For example, you have this retracted position that you cut from. You can have the sword forward, etc. It's a bunch of like, you can have it low, like this, similar to Fold's guard. There's a bunch of similar positions, you know, like this, etc. But personally, I think the one with the most spice is this one, where you support your main hand with your offhand. There's also this variation, which can look pretty good as well. Like just in terms of giving it some extra pizzazz, I do think there is a significant difference between this and this, or this. I feel like this one here looks the most disrespectful. Yeah, I know what I'm doing, come at me. The other guard I like almost as much is this. Also pretty cool, but not quite like that. There's a reason why I saved sword and buckler for last. There's some interesting stuff here. So I would argue most of the time you tend to spend in either one of these. This is a good one with the blade retracted. Now the hand position looks a bit weird. It's drawn like this. I'm not really sure what's up with that. I definitely prefer it that way. But I'm also not particularly proficient in sword and buckler, so maybe there's a good reason for it. Now, this is really only good when you're showing the character from the side, because from the front, there isn't much to see, which of course is the point, you know, to hide the point. Well, I should add, I like to hide the point behind the buckler. It is actually shown like that, or I guess this way, technically. I think this one here is visually the most interesting. You've got the blade retracted, buckler forward, you know, hinging at the hip. This is one that's good at subtly showing fencing skill. Because when you see this, at first you might think, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, the buckler's in the way of the sword. Like, you can't even do anything from there, except you very well can. It's not that difficult, and it is a deceptive guard. All right, let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with these picks? Do you have other favorites? Typey, typey. Thanks for watching. Take care, folks.